Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics on the Hindu's YouTube channel. I'm Nistula Hebbar, political editor of The Hindu and your host for this show, where we go behind the headlines of stories hitting domestic politics. This week's episode is not about some major election or even political development among the various political parties or even in the government. This week, we are doing an episode that touches on political economy. Now, this episode has been inspired by the Hindu's launch of the Mind series of thoughtful conversations that we will be holding with leaders across sectors in public life. Our first guest on Monday was Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta, and one of the most persistent questions to her had been the flight of business, not industry, but multinational corporations and others to either the national capital region, that is Gurgaon and Noida, etc., or to other parts of the country. Now, the CM had much to say about what she plans to do to bring back big business to Delhi. But this episode will be looking at how business, especially FDI, looks at Indian states and their reasons for doing so, which cannot be separated from the politics. So, what has been the story so far? My own interest in the topic came from two sources. One, of course, was my own career trajectory as someone who has worked in the political economy space in big business newspapers like the Business Standard, Financial Express, and the Economic Times for a significant portion of my career. And secondly, from a story done by my colleague Sharad Raghavan, where he did an analysis of FDI movement in the last 10 years. And he came to some very interesting conclusions. We'll try and include the link of that story in the show notes below this episode. Now, let's straight away jump to what were the findings of this study. This was an analysis by the Hindu of FDI, or foreign direct investment data, from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, which shows that over the 10-year period, 2015 to 25, the regional concentration of FDI has remained high, with just 5 states accounting for anywhere between 3/4 and nearly 90% of all FDI coming into the country. That is, there is no spread of FDI. It's going to these top 5 states among the 29 states of India, and largely that concentration has been increasing over the last 10 years. So over the last 10 years, foreign investors have shifted their preference from Delhi to Maharashtra and to an extent Gujarat. While these 3 states have remained among the top investment destinations for India, their shares have changed significantly since 2015 and 16. Out of the 10 years, both Maharashtra and Delhi have remained in the top 5 FDI destinations every year. However, their respective attractiveness has reversed direction. Now, Delhi has accounted for 32%, that is $12.7 billion of all FDI in 2015-16, the highest that year. This fell to 12%, that's a 20% fall, almost 50% in real money, 6 billion by 2024-25. In contrast, Maharashtra has seen its share grow from 24%, that is $9.5 billion in 2015-16, to 39%, that is $19.6 billion in 2024-25, the highest share that year. Karnataka has been among the top 5 FDI destinations for 9 out of the last 10 years, only losing out to Andhra Pradesh in 2016-17. That is just when the first TTP government, after the partition of a unified Andhra Pradesh, had been effected. And Karnataka attracted 10% of all FDI in 2015 and 16, which grew to 13% by 2024-25, the second highest share that year. So, why has this happened? Now, the fact that Maharashtra and Karnataka have captured 51% of India's FDI in 2024-25 is not just a number. There are a lot of issues and, reasons behind it. It's a revelation of how capital behaves during uncertain times. Now, as global FDI inflows face headwinds and investors become more risk averse, you can see there are some 3 big wars happening across the world at the moment. They inevitably gravitate towards established ecosystems that offer predictable returns and robust infrastructures. Now, this flight to quality phenomena, that is, flight to states where infra and policy architecture is stable, it means that states with mature industrial corridors, world-class connectivity, and proven policy framework like Maharashtra's Mumbai financial hub, Karnataka's Bengaluru tech ecosystem, etc., becomes even more attractive relative to the other states which are just emerging and are just finding their feet. Now, Gujarat too has doubled its share in national FDI from 6% in 2015-16 to 11% in 2024-25. Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, which saw its share from 11% to 7% over this period, have remained among the top 5 investment destinations in 8 and 7 out of the last 10 years, respectively. Now, with many state governments emulating Prime Minister Modi's playbook of industry conclaves like he had done with Vibrant Gujarat, one would assume that some of that FDI inflow would go to these other states, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta herself addressed these reasons in her conversation with The Hindu, the video of which we will add again in the show notes. Delhi's pollution, lack of decent infrastructure, erratic policy architecture has contributed to this. Now, these set of characteristics also seem to be applying to other states. Very recent example has been the state of Andhra Pradesh, when founded in 2014 after the split with Telangana, the construction of a new capital, Amravati, was declared, land was identified, and other projects had gotten off the ground. Now, just when all of this was happening came the 2019 election, and with the change in government, all of these things were put in abeyance. Lots of investigations were launched with regard to Amravati construction, etc. And a lot of business also felt very scared. There was a huge announcement of welfare architecture, freebie culture, etc. So there was a feeling that this was, not a government that you should go in with. And with the return of the TDP government in the state, we seem to be back to the revival of the old capital. But even TDP sources have told me that now that the government has decided to revive the new capital Amravati, they have to construct a substantial part of it before the next election so that it is not a victim of political whims and fancies, and investors and people who have put in money in these projects, they realize some of their investment and then investments are safe. Now, what does this example tell us? That investors are gun shy, far more than any other sector. They need predictability and stability in governance, that is, rules of business, rational taxation, an infrastructure that serves, and a pro-business attitude. Among all diversities and differential prosperity in our country, this one is significant and is directly related not just to the state of the world, but the individual state's own commitment to business. When former US President Bill Clinton first ran for office in 1992, his strategist James Carville coined the phrase, "It's the economy, stupid," to draw attention to the prevailing recession in the United States at that time, with Clinton going on to win the presidency, defeating sitting President George H.W. Bush. Economy, business, and prosperity is as central to politics as identity. And this report should ring warning bells for all concerned. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Talking Politics. Thank you so much for watching. I shall see you next week.